But let's go back to the Archers for a second. They add Grant Ament, the most prolific single-season passer in NCAA history, to an offense already with the best passer in the league, Tom Schreiber, coming off a 37-point season. And they also have some pretty good options to throw the ball to, with Will Manny, who's proven to be a tremendous off-ball presence, and Marcus Holman. Those two guys were top 2 in the PLL in goals last season, by the way. So look out for the Archers offense. So we now welcome in the head coach of the Archers, Chris Bates. Chris, look, we all know how good Grant Ament is after having a chance to watch him over his college career. But I want you to describe, what do you see? What stands out to you about him when you watch him?
First and foremost, I mean, the ability to share the ball and put it where he wants it. He's got no fear with making tough passes, and he makes people around him better. So, being around a guy like Tom for as long as I have, people always think they're open because there's a chance that he's going to find your stick. Grant has a little bit of that in him as well, where, there's no pass that's off limits. He's willing to dime it in there, and I think it just makes an offense flow that much better when guys think they're open off ball. I'm just a believer in in sharing the ball and loving the assist, and that's just something that he's pretty unique in terms of his skill set.
And to be compared to a guy like Tom Schreiber, who you were already lucky enough to coach, is pretty high praise for a guy coming into this league. How do you feel like he fits in the offense with a guy like Tom Schreiber, who can distribute as well as anybody in the game, and then some of the other pieces you have on the attack unit?
Well, it just balances the field for us a little bit more, right? I mean, we now have I think a greater presence below goal line to be able to turn heads and feed from below GLE. You have 2 elite finishers in Will Manny and Marcus Holman. Those 2 guys are ecstatic. They just realize that what they do, somebody else is going to complement and get the ball on their stick to let them, be the shooters that they are. So, Grant's also good in the 2-man game. So, he's comfortable there below goal line, but also on the wings as well. So we just think, it's going to give us, with his athleticism and his ability to dodge and also feed, just gives us another, element to put pressure on our defense and turn some heads. Tom at times last year was one of our really only initiators. Ryan and Joey picked up the slack as the season went on, Ambler and Sankey. But this gives us, I think, another element to what we do offensively.
I think the interesting thing to watch for me in the league last year was sometimes, for certain teams, the lack of a dominant ex-attackman that we sometimes see in the college game. Matt Rambo obviously did it so well, but it wasn't as necessary, I feel like, in the way the games were played as it is maybe if you're watching the college game. How does Grant fit into how the league has kind of felt out this first season in terms of offense?
Well, I think part of the answer is there's just not a lot of elite ex-attackmen that can separate, and I think it's the nature of, there's only a few guys that do that, right? I mean, Rob Pennell coming to the league is unique, but if you look around, in terms of pure distributors, it's easier said than done. So I think, Grant's ability to be comfortable there. The other thing he does a nice job of is feeding with pressure. So he doesn't have to necessarily separate to be able to put himself in a position where he can make a good feed. So I think, for us, like I said, it balances the field a little bit more. To your point, so much is transition, and so he also can potentially hit trailers coming down the field. So, whereas we're not a prototypical early offense team per se, we're a little more half field. We feel like there may be opportunities for us to pick up the pace in transition. Getting the ball through X and then having some heads turn and having different guys step into shots early in a possession.
So you're a guy based in Philadelphia. Grant obviously grew up there. I wonder, when was the first time you had a chance to see him play, and what was that first impression whether it was when he was growing up, when he was being recruited, when you first saw Grant?
Well, being at Hartford School and seeing the teams that he was on there, I'm now the head coach at Episcopal, so we didn't overlap. Thankfully, I would not want to try to find a way to defend him in high school. But you knew back then, that he had a special skill set and had an ability to dodge and feed. So. Once he was at Haverford, he became a more known quantity. And when I was a college coach, we certainly, knew of his ability. So, but it's fun to see him, you go back and see the pictures of him when he was a little guy, and Drew Adams had, a picture when he, was a guy in a Maverick commercial or something, just, wanting to be that guy that just, plays at the highest level, and he continues to, put himself in a position to be successful everywhere he's played.
That's one of my favorite things about pro lacrosse is you have the new kids that are looking up to the guy who's been in the league for 8, 9, 10 years, and the overlap of like, oh, I remember when I was at a camp that you taught when I was in like 9th grade. That's always been fun to watch. Let's go to what you guys are looking at this year, because it's a 3-week tournament. How do you figure out the players that you need, and how you go about trying to game plan for kind of a series of games at the beginning in that first week and then leading up to basically a single elimination tournament?
Well, I think you have to be able to adjust as you go. So, there's a premium on guys that can do some different things, so that we have to have layers of sort of different strategies and things that we're able to do. So, thankfully, in this day and age, the ability to have video calls and do some things in advance to when we get there are going to be critical. We're going to have some new parts all over the field. Defensively bringing in Eli, Christian Mazzone is new, Grant is new. So, we're going to have to figure those things out. But we're relying on the guys who have played in a world game setting too. We've got to have enough depth to be able to make those adjustments, but also if there are injuries, we want to be prepared for that. Because it's a little bit of a war of attrition, right? I mean, it's just you're playing game after game. So we're talking about how we're going to condition to get to that point, and then you kind of got to survive and be able to keep advancing once you're there physically, but then also mentally in terms of how you can make some adjustments to compete.
Obviously, I'm sure you've been in contact with the league, and they've been pretty forthcoming about how they're trying to go about doing this. Do you have any concerns, or have you heard of any concerns about how you guys can make sure you go about doing this and making sure everybody is safe while it happens?
No, it's a good question. It's such an interesting time. I mean, it is, right? This is unprecedented. So I think, we're trusting the medical folks and the protocols that are going to be in place. And I give our league officials, Paul and Mike, and the medical team a ton of credit, because they're as thorough as you can possibly be in terms of conversations with the CDC and, people in the White House. So nobody's going to be put in harm's way. I think that the necessary protections are certainly going to be in place, because once you're there, you're not leaving, right? I mean, we're playing in a bubble. So I think, like you say, the testing before you're there, once you're there, and then hopefully everybody can operate for 3 weeks feeling like, okay, we're in a good shape here to be amongst like-minded people who are having the necessary precautions, and then we can just play. Like, I think everybody's just excited to play once you get there. The natural concern around it is real, and I think all that is being handled really, really well.
Chris, certainly interesting times, but I think we're all really excited to hopefully get a chance to see some lacrosse this summer. Congrats on getting Grant, because that's a good one to have #1, and thanks for the time.
Anytime, no doubt. See you.